Hey guys, this is Mario Amaya for Area Sports Network, and today we will preview the big matchup between Nashville SC and DC United in the top places of the Eastern Conference. And to preview this game, I have the pleasure of being joined by a very special guest. He is currently a play-by-play announcer and presenter for Apple TV. He was also previously a presenter and a reporter for both the final score and late kickoff for the BBC network, and will be a commentator for FIFA this summer for this summer's World Cup. And he will be in charge of calling the play-by-play action for Saturday's game between Nashville and DC, Mr. Tony Husbands. Mr. Tony, how are you doing today?
Lovely to see you, Mario. Thanks very much for having me and looking forward to the game this weekend between these two teams in the East. Should be a good matchup as well, I reckon.
Definitely. Just to go into this game, both teams are coming out of a good run of form. Nashville has won five of their last nine games, both in league play and CONCACAF play. But out of that, despite of being eliminated in the CONCACAF Champions Cup midweek. And for DC United, they're enjoying a good run of form as well. They've won two games and drawn their last two, having a four-game unbeaten streak, recently beating NYCFC on Sunday. What do you think the morale for both teams is going to be like heading into this game?
Well, I think if we look at it from the DC point of view, this is a really good run. And, when you consider that DC have been floundering somewhat in the last 2 or 3 years in Major League Soccer, they haven't had too many runs like this. And even if you set aside the US Open Cup exit, it was on penalty shootout. They didn't lose that game in regulation time. So, they've gotten 5 games now since they've actually tasted a 90-minute defeat. And, these are encouraging signs for Rene Weiler and his group. I think he's got a lot of things that he still wants to do. I think his lineup will probably change a little bit after we come out of the World Cup break this summer. But they've got to be in a very confident frame of mind going into this one, having won at a difficult venue in Citi Field last weekend. And now they go to Nashville, an equally tough place to go. But they do come up against a Nashville side who, for as well as they've done at the start of this season, and for the praise they've drawn, and quite rightly so, for their performances, they've actually just hit just a little bit of a wobble because they've gone out of CONCACAF. No disgrace in that against Tigres, but they failed to score in 2 games against the Mexican side. And in between that, they didn't score on the road at Philadelphia either. And the one thing that kind of knits all those things together is the fact that they've been without Sam Surridge in those games. And it's shown that, you take a Golden Boot contender out of a team, and that can be a problem. Not that that's been such an issue for DC, of course, because they've done some of this without Ty Baribo.
Speaking of Nashville, they're one of the best currently sitting atop of the Eastern Conference. They're one of the best goal scoring teams in the start of the season with 21 goals. Outside of not having Sam Sturridge, you still have Handy Mukhtar, who's one of the best players in the league. But for anybody that you want to tell about this very good off team offensively, what other players does Nashville have that DC United needs to look out for this Saturday?
Well, I think we can go back to some of the earliest games that DC United have played in Nashville down the years. I can remember being at Nissan Stadium, Nashville's first home in Music City, and seeing DC well beaten on occasion there when we go back to the beginning of Nashville's existence in Major League Soccer. So it's not always been a happy hunting ground down here for DC, aside from an incredible comeback victory a couple of years ago, which was inspired by Gabriel Pirani, ironically, of all players. But, when you look across this national team, yeah, Mukhtar is clearly one of the danger men. Christian Espinoza was the big get in the off-season, the quite remarkable free agent signing from San Jose. Somehow that slipped through the net out in California, and they were able to pick him up as a free agent. Warren Madrigal has come in, a Costa Rican international, has shown some promise in his early games. I think he's tailed off just a little bit from what I've seen of him recently. But at the same time that he might have just plateaued slightly, Ahmed Kasim has started to come back to the fore, a player who they signed over a year ago for some $4 million from Sweden. And he suffered a little bit towards the end of his first year, but he's come on very strong in this second season as he started to seize his opportunities as well. So there's some players there to look out for, but they're going to be without some players probably as well. Eddie Tagseth has been injured of late. He's questionable for the weekend. And Patrick Yazbek, the Australian midfielder, who's been outstanding for them this season. He limped out of the warm-up in their game down in Monterrey against Tigres, didn't play, and that was a big miss for them in that game. And you would suspect he's also, at this point, questionable for the weekend. So they're not going to be at full strength. The big question mark will be Sam Surridge, because if they've got Surridge up in attack, that really gives them the spearhead and the focus to their attack. And without him, they're kind of trying to find other solutions, and I'm not sure they've quite found the right one yet.
Being without Sam Surge and having to pretty much get try to work around that key injury, I think for DC United as well, Ty Baribo has been listed as questionable by head coach Renee Weiler, but they've been getting good good contributions from Jackson Hopkins and Louis Montano, who was the club record signing this season for Nashville. What is the key factors of trying to stop a very good team that plays a very good high press and loves attacking in the wings, in particular with players such as Joao Peglo, Jackson Hopkins himself, and Keisuke Kurakawa and Sylvain Hefty coming from the back line.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, I think Nashville will be happy to play that game against DC. I think they'll be happy to say, bring it on if you want to come up and press us, because they've got the confidence to play out from the back with the players they have, right from the goalkeeper, Schwaki. They will play it out and they'll try and beat that press. So it's not necessarily going to be a game that they would struggle with. I think it's interesting, actually, because, in so many ways, I think right now, when you look at the standings, I mean, DC have risen right up there in the East, but they'd probably still, DC followers would look somewhat enviously at Nashville's position and potential. And everyone's talking about, how far can this Nashville team go? Could they be an MLS Cup contender? They're definitely going to be a deep playoff run kind of team. I don't think people are talking about DC in those terms yet. But when you look actually at one little aspect I think is really interesting is that DC have got a $10 million signing in Montano and a $4.5 million cash fur, if you want to call it, in Baribo. And Nashville, having lost their star striker in Sam Surridge, they're looking at the roster and they have Rubens Passius, the Haitian, who hasn't been given too many minutes. They don't really have a replacement for their striker. Munteanu at the moment is proving an very adequate replacement for Baribo. And you've got the excitement that you could bring both of those players in and they actually play in a 4-4-2 as the two strikers. And that could see DC being very dangerous.
Just speaking of those two, just how much of if Baribo and Montano are on the pitch at the same time, how much does Nashville have to look out for with those two strikers in particular?
Well, they wouldn't have played an awful lot together, I don't think. I mean, Munteanu's had a
No.
couple of injuries and things like that, so I think it's going to be interesting to see how they play together, and whether they've just got that immediate connection or whether it's going to take some time. Do they want to be doing the same things? Are they making the same runs, looking for the same balls, or can they complement each other? That's obviously got to be the hope that they will. And Rene Weiler likes to play. I mean, he doesn't necessarily term it as a straight 4-4-2, but that, to all intents and purposes, to the naked eye, is what it looks like. And so, from that point of view, playing those two together, it ought to be a system kind of thing that they would think can work. So it's going to give Nashville some challenges. Nashville are very bold and courageous the way they play it out from the back, but that of course means that you're never far from a mistake either. The back pair of Palacios and Waleji, the two centre halves, have been outstanding so far this season. But they also give Nashville fans a few moments where their hearts are in their mouths as they try and play out of presses. So they're going to have to be on alert. Set pieces are going to be big moments, of course, in the game as well, and how Nashville can deal with those. And I think just probably the big question I will have going into this one is, Nashville have had such a great start to the season. They got so much acclaim for knocking Messi and co out of CONCACAF. Spoiling that script line, if you like, of Messi going to a CONCACAF final, going then to Club America and doing what no other MLS team has done, and a really historic victory in Azteca Stadium. And now they've been knocked out, and they didn't score over 2 games against Tigres. And ultimately, now it's right. We're now back to the league. We've got a home game. How are they going to respond? They're not going to be at full strength because of injuries. So this is a good test of character for them. Could be a good moment for DC to try and catch him. A DC side in good form that maybe can just catch Nashville trying to rediscover their focus a little bit after their exit from CONCACAF this week.
Another player that's going to be really up for this is going to be Andy Nahar, former DC United homegrown product, grew up in the DC area, in particular in the city of Alexandria, Virginia, and played for DC United twice in his career. Despite joining Nashville last season, how motivated do you think Andy Nahar is to play his former team and just have a good game against DC United?
Oh, I'm sure he's hugely motivated. I mean, Andy Nahar still has his roots in the DC area. I think that in many ways that is home to him. I cannot speak highly enough of what a signing he has been in this league in the last 12 months. I mean, if you look outside of the big DP signings and the big goal scoring signings that might have come into the league, and the players that we talk about week in week out that are usually players that are scoring goals at the end of one end of the field, Andy Nahar has come in as a fullback at a somewhat unheralded position. I feel sometimes in football we don't talk about them that much, and he has been a revelation for Nashville. He has fitted so well into BJ Callahan's system. The right-hand side that Nashville possess has been one of the best in MLS, and it's been very much due to the form of Andy Nahar since he came to the club. You mentioned obviously those two spells at DC United where he really earned his MLS reputation after all those years playing over in Europe in Belgium. But he's been sensational. The one thing I wonder is that, having had a hard game Tuesday night in Monterrey at altitude, BJ Callahan has rotated around these CONCACAF games. They do have some depth at the back, Nashville. So I wonder whether Nahar might get a breather. But I would sense that this is a game where he probably will be saying, don't rotate me out of this one. This is a game I want to play.
Speaking of Andy Nahar and Nashville's backline, they've been one of the best defensive teams so far as well in the league, only allowing 6 goals. How important has it been for players such as Jason Palacios, like you mentioned earlier? How important has it been that they've bought into BJ Callahan's system?
Massively, because it doesn't work if they can't play the system, if they can't play the way that BJ Callahan wants to play, then there's just there's no way forward for them on that. Palacios and Waleji clearly fit the profile of what they want and what they can do. I'd say Waleji does a little bit more on the ball, is a little bit more of a gambler on the ball than Palacios. I think Palacios is a bit more straightforward and is going to play the pass when he sees the option. He's not necessarily going to do a big spin and a turn and too many things. Those are the moments that I think at times they get Nashville into some great positions because they get them to break a press when Waleji's doing some of that, but they also of course open themselves up to being exposed and caught out at the back. And I think no doubt that's going to happen at times with the way this team approach it. But that pairing have been excellent, and look out for them at set pieces as well. I mean, Palacios is always dangerous. When Nashville go up for a corner, free kick, he is someone who's going to be up there alongside a Sam Surridge, who you've got to keep a very, very close eye on. So they've been really good, complemented by Nahar, and also recently there's been a first-time change in this Nashville group. Dan Lovitz has been the long-standing, steady Eddie player at left back for Nashville since day one in MLS. And Reed Baker-Whiting came over in a move from Seattle right back at the beginning of the season. And you just sense there's been a passing of the torch there, just a little, because Dan Lovitz will turn 35 this summer. Baker-Whiting, I think, is 21 off the top of my head. So he is a player that, is definitely one with an eye to the future. And he has got his place in the team. But again, with a bit of rotation, I wouldn't be totally surprised if we saw Lovitz actually play in that left-back role this weekend.
I think the other question I have, and this is more about DC United, there's been a big turnaround for what DC United did last season to this season. How important is it that players have bought into the Rene Weiler effect? Defensively, they've looked a lot better. They've brought in some key signings this offseason, such as Sean Johnson in goal. Just how important has it been for that turnaround? And so far on what DC United is doing to have them in fifth place currently in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, the buy-in is crucial. It doesn't work if people aren't bought in. Rene Weiler has got a reputation for being pretty direct. He wants to get the ball forward. He wants to see goals. He wants to see goal-scoring opportunities. He told us himself on the call that he was chatting to us on for our Apple TV broadcast. he doesn't really see the point in 500 passes yielding absolutely nothing in a game. He wants to see the ball in the danger areas, and he wants to see people trying to score goals. That's two things he said, really. One, the reason for that is that's how you win football matches. It's goals. The other thing is that you have to entertain, and entertainment generally revolves around goals. So he's unashamedly got his style. You mentioned there, defensively, they've been a lot better. The Dallas game aside, I would say, and there still are some moments where it's not quite right. But you can start from the back with Sean Johnson. I thought he was outstanding for Toronto last year, and a not particularly good Toronto side. So a good get, very experienced player. Again, when you're at a point that DC are at right now, Johnson's, a good person to have, a good voice to have out there on the field when you've got the likes of Kai Rolls and Kurakawa's come in and looks dangerous, not just in defensive situations. You got experience like Herrera, who I noticed has been playing a little bit further forward at times as well this season because he brought Hefty in as well. So some new faces, all adjusting well. And I think this DC team, it's going to have some off days. It's going to have some days that are difficult, but you can clearly see some promise there for them as well. And I think right now that's something that DC fans are going to be very pleased about.
So currently, Nashville holds the all-time record so far in this series with 7 wins over DC United's 2 victories. What are going to be some of the keys for both Nashville and DC to at least walk away with a point in this game on Saturday, or to walk out with all 3 points altogether?
Well, as someone who's done a lot of Nashville games over the years in Major League Soccer, there is one consistent theme that runs through that team since pretty much day one in the league. On nights at home, when they start well, they invariably can go on and win. Sometimes the tone can be set in the first 10, 15 minutes of a game. And often at Geodis Park, where it can get rowdy, the atmosphere can really get on top of away teams. If the tone is set from the first whistle, Nashville can be a very difficult team to beat. So if from a DC point of view, don't concede early. Try the damnedest not to concede an early goal. That would be one thing. And then the more they can just, weather what will probably be a bit of an early storm, and then settle into the game and then start to play their own stuff and look to try and, catch Nashville out, to press high, try and force an error, try and turn them. And get in behind them in transitional moments, then there are going to be opportunities there. And then take your chances. I mean, as the away team, whether it be here in Nashville or anywhere, Montiano proved to be in the right spot, to get that first goal last weekend, and then was there to complete the victory from 12 yards in the second half. But you're going to need those things to drop your way, and you're going to need informed players to take those opportunities. So I think it's going to be a really interesting matchup.
And finally, I gotta ask, what is your prediction for this match?
Oh, well, it's a tough one to say right now. I mean, it's one of the best games that I have done for MLS on Apple TV since we came into broadcasting the league. Was the 4-3 victory for DC in 2024 towards the end of the season. It was an absolute thriller. It was Pirani, ironically, scored two. There were 2 stoppage time goals for DC to win the game at Nashville. So I hope we get a kind of another thriller like that this weekend. I think we will see some goals. I would think that we may well see DC continue their form. I mean, this is a key one for DC because the next 3 after it, before a 60-day break, are home games. So this last one, you could come away from the recent form and say the 3 home games are probably the real key ones now. So this one might be the one where you say, well, we'll give it a go. Let's maybe gamble a bit more than we might have on another night. So I could see some goals. I could easily see something where if they don't quite catch Nashville at the right moment, we could see something like a 2-2 draw. I think that I'm going down the middle and giving it a neutral view that we get goals, we get entertainment, and both teams get a point.
You know what? I'm kind of with you on the same boat. I think we will see an entertaining game, and it'll probably end in a 2-2 draw, to be honest with you. So, Tony, let the people know where they could follow you on social media.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm on X, Twitter as it was, at Tony Husband, all one word, and look forward to interacting with fans there. And I'll also share, some of my World Cup journey this summer in Philadelphia. We're calling the group games there, so looking forward to that. And obviously, always appreciate everyone's insight into your team, what you like about the league, what your hopes and ambitions are, because talking about MLS is something that we all want to do an awful lot more of going forward as the league grows.
And as always, you could check out Area Sports Network on all their social media platforms, and you could check out Area Sports Network's coverage of the 2026 World Cup, as we will be on location for every game and every match throughout this summer's tournament. And as always, you could check out Tony Husbands alongside Ross Smith as this Saturday night, as they will be on the call for the Nashville DC United game on Apple TV. Kickoff starts at 9:15 p.m. Tony, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about this match.
That's a pleasure, Mario.